Playing an old gen can feel kind of daunting to a lot of people, mostly because some people may feel like it's not as competitive as an OU tier. Other people can just find it really hard to wrap their head around the different mechanics that come into play when you're playing something like an underused tier, an ever-used tier, Little Cup, Ubers. So it should come to no surprise when you don't have as many resources to actually understand a tier like GSC UnderUsed that it's not really popular, or people may not feel as at home learning to play it. Some people even give up before ever trying. But I want to say that, bottom line, GSC UU is my favorite tier, and the main reason is because you can invent your own playstyle. And this isn't something I'm just throwing out there. And I think that it's very much the case, and it's different from something like Overused, in my opinion. Overused doesn't really leave you so much wiggle room to build whatever you want before having to face the fact that, you know, you're just gonna have to factor in your opponent throwing Snorlax your way, or a bunch of electrics, or T-Tar if you're playing ADV OU. But that doesn't make every low tier superior. That would be kind of stupid. It's clearly just GSC UnderUsed that's the best tier of all time. It's the culmination of a perfect balance between archetypes like Overused, I meant to say offense teams, stall teams, BP teams, and, you know, other types of shenanigans like balance or hyper offense. Diophantine wrote a pretty good article about this. I'll leave a link in the description. He kind of describes that this tier is something that finds the perfect balance between these different types. There's no particular play style that's overwhelming, and for some people that might not be what they're looking for. You know, maybe you just want to have a tier that really focuses on offense, or one that really prioritizes stall, and that's fine. I mean, I won't judge you for having shit taste and not trying my tier out, but what I think is amazing about Underused, all jokes aside, is the fact that it has a really high ceiling, but it's a very easy learning curve. It's not going to be something as stupid as a tier where you can just slap 6 random mons on a team and call it a day. You know, you have to put in your work, but you can very easily notice the rewards from learning the tier. And all of these things I'm saying are highly subjective, because you could say all of these things I'm saying about any tier, and I'm sure many SPL players like Fear or Conflict would probably say, no, what the hell are you talking about, Cherry? I mean, OU is awesome. You can be so inventive and use Ursaring. But, I mean, I'm a noob when it comes to Overused. I've been playing it for a long time. I know how to play well, but I really don't like building in it. And I just tried last year to build for UU, and I built like 15 teams, then it became 30, and it was just so easy. It's so easy to make tiny adjustments, but also it was easy for me to notice what was up, what other people were doing, and I like to think that maybe I was helping contribute to that tier, and that's what I want to leave to you guys watching. I'm going to start by talking about the main threats that represent the tier: Nidoqueen, Scyther, and Granbull, as they are the 3 S tiers. Nidoqueen having been in this tier for perhaps the longest time, if I remember correctly, but I'd have to go and look through the annals of time, so I'm not really sure. But to start it off, let's talk about the Queen, the irresistible Queen. Literally, she has Earthquake, Ice Beam, and Thunder. There's no way that you can switch in to this combination of moves. Bolt Beam is already next to perfect in terms of coverage, you know? And then you have Stab EQ. What more could you possibly ask for, right? Nidoqueen is great because it is one of the best, if not the best, mixed attacker in the underused tier. And while I talk about that, I figured that it might be a good idea to show you some of her stats and the moves that she has access to. So I'm going to zoom in for a sec and change my view. So if you have a gander over here, maybe I should open this one. You're going to have to forgive me for this window opening and closing constantly. But this will have to do. So if we have a gander over here, there is Nidoqueen, who has access to moves like Earthquake, Thunder, and Ice Beam. Earthquake is going to be your bread and butter move to deal the most damage immediately to grounded threats. It's pretty straightforward. There's little in terms of mons that can actually switch into it. One example would be the Soul Grass type Blossom. The Soul Mono Grass type that isn't quad weak to Ice and can switch in effectively to EQ and resist it. But in turn, she's weak to Status, so Lovely Kiss. Is weak to Ice Beam and can be 3-hit KO'd, is slower than Nidoqueen, and also could probably get 2-hit KO'd by Fire Blast, which Nidoqueen does occasionally use, on the condition that spikes are on the ground. Let that be clear. It's hard to talk about what makes Nidoqueen good more than what struggles to switch in the first place. So we could probably talk about the few counters that Nidoqueen has, or checks. So her ground typing is awesome, so there's little in terms of that, right? You can't have Electrics checking her very well. There is the occasional Electabuzz running Ice Punch. I mean, it'll usually run that. But that's not really a check. So Psychic types are what you would consider Nidoqueen's checks to be. Slowbro and Slowking. They're the first example that would come to mind, as they have Surf and Psychic Stab to always deal damage to Nidoqueen that's super effective, so they're always going to be able to deal like half health if they use Surf and Psychic. That said, both the Bro and the King are simps, and they succumb to the Queen after repeatedly being slapped and clapped by Earthquake crits or Thunder crits or paralysis and shit like that.
Yeah, I just want to say that water types are going to be checks to Nidoqueen regardless, and the likes of Slowbro and Slowking can definitely stay in on Nidoqueen, but they have to be careful of switching in on Nidoqueen. Okay.
Slowking is weaker to EQ crits, and Slowbro can get whittled down pretty easily after a couple of EQs and then a Thunder to top it off. Not to mention that with spikes, Nidoqueen becomes an absolute menace. Then there are the flying types: Scyther, Dodrio, Jumpluff, Gligar. Gligar's perhaps... oh yeah, and also Crobat. Gligar's perhaps the closest thing to a counter to one of Nidoqueen's sets, and that's EQ Thunder Fire Blast. But it comes with the downside of being Gligar, which is... it doesn't really do that much. It's not that strong, and you already have a ground type, so you don't want to accumulate too many ground types on one team. You'd much rather have Nidoqueen. You see what I'm doing? Nidoqueen outclasses the very ground types that are supposed to check it, even Piloswine. And I know that sounds hypocritical coming from a guy who spoke and wrote an article about why Piloswine can outclass Nidoqueen, but that's only one set of Nidoqueen. EQ, Thunder, Ice Beam, Moonlight. Moonlight is incompatible with Lovely Kiss, and as a result, you're going to have to make a decision if you want your Nidoqueen to be a better switch into electric types without too much concern of getting hit by an Ice Punch or a stray Hidden Power Ice, or being a really deadly sweeper with a status move to check the fast checks. So, or just anything that might get in its way. Yeah. So the reason why Fire Blast is becoming slightly more popular over the recent years, is due to the fact that it can deal better damage to Blossom and Scyther. I would probably say that it's better for Scyther. And to a certain extent, but not really that much of an important one, Pinsir. But the real deal is the fact that it smacks Piloswine in the face. So, also Piloswine doesn't learn Fire Blast, so you can continue to use your faster Nidoqueen. The other takeaway is that Nidoqueen is decently fast. It's in a decent speed tier with 76 base speed, and in English, that means 250 speed at level 100. So it can outspeed a lot of things that might otherwise check it, and with Thunder, you're able to put a lot of things into a pretty shitty range. You know, you can paralyze things and threaten those things that might otherwise be faster than you. So Nidoqueen is absolutely awesome. The other types of mons that might switch into it are that aren't flying type are other bulkier mons like Hypno or Granbull. And these two mons share the common trait of taking neutral damage from all of Nidoqueen's moves. So, in that regard, they don't take added damage, but they hate crits. Granbull hates crits from all three of three of whichever Nidoqueen's moves are. And Hypno mainly just hates Earthquake because of it being bulky on the special side. Granbull can slowly set up Curse and render Nidoqueen's Earthquakes irrelevant, but Nidoqueen will usually just, after the first Curse, opt for Thunder and Fire Blast or Ice Beam or whatever the player sees fit. What else can be said? Nidoqueen's bulky. So even if you have a Kadabra and you feel confident that you're going to take out Nidoqueen or that the opponent's going to switch out because, oh no, Psychic types. Yes, Nidoqueen has a poison typing. You got to watch out because if Nidoqueen's at full and your Kadabra's at like 50, 60%, maybe even 70, I don't remember the calcs right now, that Nidoqueen can always just go for EQ and take out your Kadabra. It's happened to me before, and that's when I realized that, damn, she really is a queen. So, you gotta watch out for that. Then there are the other two S-tier mons. I don't think I have to dwell on Nidoqueen. Granbull and Scyther are really good and very much deserving of S-tier status, as much as the long-living queen. And what's wonderful is that you can already see 3 Pokemon at the top of S tier, showing you just how much of a balanced metagame you have. You don't have anything that is completely overpowering others. You just have a lot of mons that have their own level of brokenness, but can be responded to with the right answers. So, Granbull is pretty self-explanatory. If you look at his stats, there isn't too much to write home about, with one exception, and that's its attack. And it's decent physical bulk, I guess. but all the rest is mediocre. So, with a normal stat and the relatively small amount of normal resists, means that Granbull is gonna be a force to be reckoned with. You have to watch out for Granbull, because normal is one of the few typings in the game where that from Gen 1 has really good attacks. And there are plenty of other mons in this tier with even with a high attack, but nothing to go with it. Scyther has 110 base attack, and Pinsir has 125, Gyarados has 125. That's almost as high, if not higher, than Granbull's attack with all these three previously mentioned mons. But they don't have a strong enough physical stab to boot. And sure, Granbull doesn't have double edge, but if we were to look at this for a second, with this low special bulk and slow speed, you might not want to have a move that deals damage to yourself in the first place. So Return or Frustration is absolutely fine. It's a maximum 102 power, and then if you factor in the fact that it gets stabbed, that's 150. So that's stronger than most moves out there. And with the 120 base power, even though it doesn't have EQ, it can still use Hidden Power Ground to hit Steel types, and hit Rock types, and hit Haunter. So, and that's one of the other reasons why Granbull is so good. It's not only absolutely fantastic in this tier because it can hit so many things. There's only like a handful of normal resists, and there are so many mons that are susceptible to frustration. But it's also the fact that all of these mons are weak to Hidden Power Ground. Every normal resist shares the ground weakness that is not seen in Overused if you're using Skarmory, or I guess Aerodactyl, lol. So with Hidden Power Ground, you already have perfect coverage. You hit everything neutrally, if not super effectively. I mean, I guess you can only argue that you hit everything neutrally because the only thing you're hitting super effectively are the very things that resist normal type, which is hits nothing super effectively. But I think you get the idea what I'm getting at. So what is Granbull good at? Granbull is a physical attacker, go figure, that can set up. So it's a setup sweeper, but it's also a wall breaker. You're gonna usually see Curse on Granbull, but it also has other interesting moves, like Lovely Kiss, used to put to sleep things like Haunter, or any mon really, and Heal Bell even in some cases. And there are sets along the lines of mono normal moves, so your Stab, Curse, Rest, and Sleep Talk, or Heal Bell instead of Curse. But there are also those wall breaker sets. So it can be anything from Stab, Curse, Hidden Power Ground, and Rest, or Stab, Curse, Hidden Power Ground, and Protect, or Stab, Curse, Hidden Power Ground, Lovely Kiss. There's even Shadow Ball, or I've seen Thunder even being used to hit Omastar, which is one of the few mons that can take Hidden Power Ground pretty well if it's unboosted. And there's even unboosted Granbull with Hidden Power Ground and Sleep Talk. And that's also really good because it grants Granbull with the ability to switch into Nidoqueen pretty effectively and just deal damage and leave and come back in and then use Sleep Talk. So, yeah, Granbull is here to stay. I don't know if it was always in the S tier, though. It would be good if someone who does know a thing or two about this tier were to write that in the comments. Now, on to Scyther, because what more can we say other than we need something to check Nidoqueen's checks. Because the other interesting thing is that all these 3 S tiers could be put onto one team, and they would synergize extremely well with each other. Scyther is a bug type, Granbull's a normal type, Nidoqueen's a ground type that is also pretty susceptible to psychics. So Scyther comes in and checks those very psychics that would otherwise sit on Nidoqueen or threaten it back with psychic. It has Hidden Power Bug. Where is it? It has an excellent speed stat, and it's also deceptively bulky on the special side. There isn't going to be all that much hitting it on the physical side, as not many Mons use Rock Slide in this tier. So you're going to want to keep your Scyther away from physical attackers that can actually hit it. The flying type is wonderful because it has a ground immunity. And the bug type, besides giving it stab, doesn't really do much else for it. But, at the very least, it can threaten a lot of things, and it has access to Sword Stance. With Sword Stance, Scyther's pretty mediocre move pool can become really threatening, as with Hidden Power Bug and Double Edge, or Hidden Power Ground and Wing Attack, or Double Edge, or Frustration, or even Hyper Beam, can end games that might otherwise have ended with a certain player losing and the non-Scyther user winning. Scyther can really fuck a game up. It can fuck a metagame up in so many ways, more ways than one. So your standard set might be something along the lines of this. Now, I'll get into why, and where's Baton Pass? Yes, Baton Pass. That's something to look out for. Now, you can pretty much mix these moves up, and I'll get to other variations of this moveset, but we're going to start with this. So with Zero Happiness, of course, Scyther will be using Frustration. And with Frustration, you have a pretty decent 102 base power move that's only slightly weaker than Hidden Power Bug. So maybe you won't see Frustration in Hidden Power Bug, but I've seen it be used before, and it looks like it works, because there are lots of Mons like Nidoqueen that resist Bug type. So with Bugs, you're going to be able to threaten things like Hypno, as we mentioned before, and Slowbro. If Slowbro is gonna switch into Nidoqueen and manages to safely use Rest and Sleep Talk, that should be the time for Nidoqueen to switch out. So you can always take advantage of any Psychic type, because Psychic types are generally pretty slow. Only Kadabra speed ties Scyther. And frail when it comes to Scyther. And if they have Rest and Sleep Talk, you can come in and hope for RNG to favor you. Not to mention that Hypno cannot 3-hit KO Scyther, and I don't know about Slowbro or Slowking, but they have a pretty strong special attack, so maybe they can. But you have to wonder if 3-hit KOing a Mon while in Sleep Talk is enough for you, because Scyther can start setting up Sword Stance. They're not going to be attacking right away. They're going to be setting up first things first. And then, as you try to respond, Scyther can Baton Pass. And that's one of the things that makes Scyther amazing. From something that's sort of decent as a sweeper to something that's absolutely amazing and unpredictable. Not to mention, Scyther can be really great at giving momentum, even without that Sword Stance pass, or agility. Scyther can pass a lot of things, and can pass even a +2 attack to Nidoqueen, making Nidoqueen virtually impossible to switch into. Or the same can go for a lot of Mons. Gyarados, Granbull, Piloswine. Hell, even Kabutops or Sandslash. So, yeah, Scyther is going to work very well, and do a lot of favors to physical attackers that might otherwise struggle with phasers and sleep talkers. One of Scyther's most common checks is Gyarados, but at the same time, Gyarados can be forced to switch in and either attack or use using Hidden Power Flying, or use Roar. And if it uses Roar, then it has negative priority, so you can smack it in the face. Next time it's coming in, it might just die. So, yeah. Another thing that should be noted is that Scyther cannot use Double Edge in conjunction with Baton Pass. So if you do ever see Double Edge, or even Light Screen Scyther, then you can be pretty fairly certain that this Scyther is not going to be pivoting around. And it would be a good idea to attack it or face it. So, yeah. As for the other moves, if you don't want to use Hidden Power Bug because you feel like your team isn't relying too much on getting rid of mons like Hypno, you can always bluff having Hidden Power Bug and use Hidden Power Ground. And this is why I wanted to talk about Bug first, because Hidden Power Ground is extremely viable on Scyther. It works well with Wing Attack and with Frustration. You can really, honestly, you can just pick. It doesn't matter. With Frustration and Hidden Power Ground, you obviously can hit everything neutrally, and you're not going to be walled by Magneton. So that's nice. I also learned that Hidden Power Bug is not resisted by Omastar, so you don't really need Ground if you're concerned about Omastar switching in. But yeah, that's all there is to say about Hidden Power Ground and Frustration. You can bluff having Hidden Power Bug, as a Pokemon like Mr. Mime uses Rest and you switch in, and they're like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't stay in. And they switch out, and you're like, psych! Aha! I set up a Swords Dance while you thought I was gonna KO your Mon or something, and so now I'm gonna take advantage of that. I mean, with the fact that Scyther can run more than one variation of Hidden Power means that you're never really safe switching in on it. And the moment in which you feel like you could be safe, it can either attack you or with something unexpected, or just pivot to something using Baton Pass and then passing that stat to something that does check your Scyther check. So, the key here is to make sure you have a bulky enough team or a good phaser. Perhaps the biggest kryptonite would be Rest Talk Crobat with Haze and Wing Attack, as it's one of the two mons that outspeeds it, but also has a Haze move to cancel all of the stat boosts. Another thing that should be noted is that Hidden Power Bug is nearly perfect in terms of DVs. I'm going to put that back on just for you to see. And if you have a look here, I can't scroll down, so I'm going to have to zoom out and then zoom in. And if you have a look there, the DVs are pretty much perfect all around for Hidden Power Bug. But if you use Hidden Power Ground, HP Ground, then there's a noticeable difference in terms of HP and bulk. HP as in health points. So with 7 HP DVs and 12... just the 7 HP DVs, really. You will notice that you'll take... the Scyther will take more damage, so you can calc that and get early information. So don't feel too safe with making bluffs. Usually you only ever want to do that when you know when your Scyther hasn't taken too much damage. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say when it comes to the main 3 mons. They all, if I've been clear enough, you can tell that they all do something that the other two mons don't do. And they have pretty good synergy, and they're great physical attackers or mixed attackers or sweepers, all in their own right. And they are all known for turning games on their head. All three of them. And they have perhaps the highest kill count. But what makes GSC Underused so beautiful is that if you go to the usage stats of any tournament and you look at them, they only ever place in top 5. It's not all three of them being in the top 3. So that should be a further sign that they're balanced, not only amongst themselves, but among other mons too. Because the other two mons that I might get to now are Spikers and Psychic types. Now, I'm not really sure if I can say that there is a best Psychic type, but if I had to choose two, in the most recent time, Hypno and Mr. Mime have proven to be the absolute most reliable Psychic types out there, outclassing even Slowbro and Slowking, which were once deemed kings. Literally. Now, I think I'm more of a Hypno lover than I am a Mr. Mime one, but if you are familiar with red, blue, yellow, underused, then you should feel pretty at home using these two mons, more than using Slowbro or Slowking, and for good reason. Psychic type is still really good in this tier, although not nearly as broken. And, I mean, if they can check Nidoqueen, which is the queen of UU, then you know that they're good. That's already enough for them to be viable. But it's the fact that there's only one steel type and other psychics that resist it, that they can pretty much go unhindered. You know, they can spam that psychic and fish for a Spadef drop, and already you're getting so much offensive value, even if you have a defensive Pokemon like Hypno. They're also super bulky, especially, and they can do a really good job at checking other mons that might hit it neutrally on the special side, while they hit back, and sometimes harder. So Hypno is really good in that regard. But if we want to get into the nitty-gritty, Hypno is a great sleep talker. Mr. Mime, while it also knows sleep talk, isn't as good at switching in to Nidoqueen. So you might rather have Mr. Mime do something different. So Hypno has Psychic and Light Screen, Rest, Sleep Talk. It has access to Hypnosis. It has access to Reflect, Body Slam, Seismic Toss, and even Ice Punch if you want to act all cute. And it learns Thunder Wave too. Now, I am someone who vouches for using Sleep Talk Hypno at least once in a while. You should definitely try using Hypno if you want to fix some problems in your team, because Hypno makes for really good glue. And yeah, there's not much else that can be said. If it hits the top 3 with an unresisted move, then that's already great. It can get Spadef drops. It can deal a decent chunk to Scyther, who's deceptively bulky, yet at the same time also not bulky enough to constantly attempt sweeps. So if you ever do feel like you're in a dire situation, don't underestimate Hypno. You can hit it pretty well, as Bug type doesn't resist it. And there are no Dark types in this tier either. So yeah, you really only have to take out the opposing Psychic, and you already have a clear win con with your own. That's what makes Psychic types good. I will get into the other ones after. But I do want to emphasize the fact that Hypno is really good glue, but that can also be the downside of Hypno, in that if that's your only line of defense against the likes of special attackers, then your opponents will do everything in their power to overwhelm you by either exploding on it or just using their own physical attackers or mixed sweepers like Nidoqueen. So you gotta watch out for that. But besides being a sleep talker that sits on things and hits things hard, it also offers very valuable support. With this example here being Light Screen, which is super helpful for many physical attackers that are susceptible to special moves. So Gyarados comes to mind, really benefits from that. And also, what's it called? Piloswine can feel a lot more safe facing a water type. So Light Screen's great. You can use Reflect. You can use T-Wave. T-Wave cripples a lot of mons. It'll cripple a Scyther if it's not using, if the opponent isn't careful. It can cripple opposing Psychic types, thus giving your other mons a chance to take out that Psychic and then paving even more of a way for your Hypno. So, yeah. On the other hand, Mime is faster, more frail, and perhaps has higher special attack. Yeah, way higher. But something that really sticks out is its access to Thunder. Something that only Haunter has. But Haunter doesn't have Stab Psychic. So, with this Psychic plus Thunder coverage, very powerful Thunder coverage, because Hypno and Kadabra also learn Thunder Punch, then you can really hit a lot of things extremely hard. And there isn't really much that's going to resist your special attacks. Magneton comes to mind, but it can still get screwed over by the Spadef drops. And Hypno can switch into Mime, and that it'll very likely happen. And Mime may switch into Hypno, and that'll also likely happen. And the difference being that Hypno can only attempt to stall, and if it's not using like some sort of body slam move, and so it'll have to try and stall and hope that there's no Spadef drop, because if it does get a Spadef drop, then Mr. Mime can use Thunder, and I think 3-hit KO, pretty reliably 3-hit KO the Hypno at that point. Since it's so fast, it can also put a lot of mons to sleep, and it can also use Hypnosis or T-Wave. So, as you see here, you got a Psychic Electric combo, but it's by far not the most common set. You have different sets on Hypno. Hypno's going to offer more support, and as a result, it also makes for a good teammate for other Psychic types, if you want to use a Psychic that checks other Psychics. So it's like a lure. Psychic plus Thunder. Okay, I already explained what that does. Hypnosis is good. T-Wave is good. But you can also use Encore. So Encore is pretty common. If you're not using a Sleep Talk Mime. So in that sense, if, for instance, a Hypno uses Rest, I'm just making this simple example, then you can use Encore. Don't use Encore on Sleep Talk, because it doesn't work. But if you use Encore on a turn in which you know the opponent will use Sleep Talk, then you can lock it into using Rest. Encore lasts about 3 to 6 turns. 3 turns is the bare minimum for a mon to be forced to use Rest after 2 turns of the sleep cycle. So as a result, let's say Hypno uses Rest, it's slower, and on the following turn, Mime uses Encore. That's 1 turn burnt without Hypno being able to click on Sleep Talk. Even if the opponent chose Sleep Talk, the game will input Rest again. So, nothing, an empty turn. At this point, the Mr. Mime user can even switch out. He doesn't even have to threaten the Hypno. But let's say that he stays in. Well, then Hypno will use Rest again, yet again, with the opponent having nothing else to do besides switch out. Now let's say for one more turn, Hypno finally wakes up and burns those 2 obligatory sleep turns after a rest. Well, newsflash, it's still locked in to rest. So it can't click another move anyways. And if it took damage, then you can bet your bottom dollar that that rest will succeed. And if it succeeds, then Mime can just, well, guess what? Use Encore again. So, yeah, Encore is really powerful. It's not powerful just for that. In fact, I don't think you're going to be using Encore for Hypno specifically, but maybe for something like, I don't know, Slowbro? Or even a Grand Bull. It can work for a lot of things. It really just depends. So there's that. Sorry if I took a long time talking about that. Mime, too, has Light Screen and Reflect. So you can always use screens if you really feel like your team requires that kind of defensive support alongside some powerful Psychic plus Thunder shenanigans. But to make matters even worse, Mr. Mime is on every full baton pass team because it's able to pass agility or what was it? Barrier. Barrier is the move I was thinking of. Barrier increases the defense by 2 stages. So yeah, you can pass agility to Quagsire, and Quagsire can use Belly Drum and Sweep. Or you can even pass Substitute and pass to like a Sand Slash or something. So yeah, Mime is unpredictable. It can even use Fire Punch. So it's really, really good. Really good. So people are of different schools of thoughts as to what to use, but I've even seen Psychic Thunder rest Sleep Talk. But again, it's pretty frail on the physical side. So you gotta watch out for that. Other Psychics. There's Kadabra, who does a lot of the things that Mime does, but in a more straightforward fashion. It's very frail. It can use Nightmare and T-Punch or Encore. Yeah, but I've seen Nightmare Kadabra. It's way stronger. It's the only one of the few special attackers that can Oko Qwilfish. It can deal a hell of a lot of damage to Haunter as well. Really powerful. It really doesn't give a fuck about coverage sometimes. Like, so if you're gonna switch in your Magneton, you better be prepared for Spadef drops and shit like that. So you gotta watch out. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, very frail. Has access to recover, so no use for using a Sleep Talker. And other honorable mentions are, of course, the Slow Twins that will either run Surf, Psychic, Rest, Sleep Talk, or Surf T-Wave, or Psychic T-Wave, or Surf Zap Cannon. They have a base 100 special attack, and electric types don't like to switch in on them because they have Stab Surf, so they can hurt even Magneton and 2-hit KO it with spikes. So that's pretty good. I'd say that one is better at switching in on special attacks, but I mean, they come with the downside of being weak to one of the most common special attacks in Thunder. So I think Slowbro has become more popular than Slowking in recent times, as it's able to actually be a solid check for the likes of ground types and Granbull. Yes, Granbull outspeeds Slowbro, but Slowbro 3-hit KOs it, and if the Granbull doesn't. So if Granbull sets up a curse, it's now slower than Slowbro. And yeah. So that's actually a catch-22 situation. So the last Psychic type worthy of being mentioned, I mean, it's the last Psychic type, so it's already worthy of being mentioned, is Girafarig. Girafarig is a one-trick pony, or giraffe. It has agility And that's all it does. It passes agility. You're going to pass agility to a Quagsire, and you're going to hope you sweep. And that's what it does. It also has access to Thunder, just like Mr. Mime, and is immune to Ghost, which is... I mean, it's insignificant, but I guess it's nice. And since there's no fighting types, there's no downside to having the normal typing there. I guess it could also use Return, and it's known for using other things, but its go-to set is probably something along the lines of this. It can also pass Amnesia, which is really good, as if you think that you have what it takes to take on Girafarig using a special attacker, well, think again, because if they use one Amnesia, then you're no longer in that 3-hit KO range or that juicy range to hit the Girafarig. And you can also, it can also use it a second time and then pass to something at full health, which will then use Belly Drum and Sweep. So, yeah, watch out for Girafarig, and if you respect it, you won't fear it all too much. It's also known for using Miracle Berry, so you gotta watch out and pay attention to whether or not it has leftovers and it's recovering after it takes spikes damage, or if it's using Miracle Berry. And I'm speaking from the perspective of watch out for it rather than this is how you use it, because I don't really like using it. But it's really good. It's usually paired with Mr. Mime. And what else did I want to say about Girafarig? Girafarig is good because... I don't know. Oh yeah, because the two mons that use Haze the most in this tier are poison types. So that's also one of the other reasons why Baton Pass, full Baton Pass teams or Agility Baton Pass teams are very viable. The Agility Passers, Mime and Girafarig, have access to a stab that's super effective against Quill. So if Qwilfish or Crobat choose to use Haze, they're gonna have to take a hit, and they can't always afford to do that. So that part is kind of broken. You gotta outplay the Baton Pass in this tier, which isn't impossible. Anyways, you gotta play ahead of it. So now on to Qwilfish, since I've mentioned it. Qwilfish is absolutely wonderful. Shoutouts to Lock and Knockin' or something. I think that's his name. He made a video recently about Hisuian Qwilfish and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. You should check it out. But he said that Qwilfish sucks. Not in this tier, he doesn't. Not in GSC Underused. It is the only spiker. That's already enough to make it a very important asset to this tier, if not the most important, as without Qwilfish, we'd be missing so many thresholds, and I'm pretty sure GSC UU would have just cancered out at some point, and we'd have too many infinite switches and people going unpunished for switching in and using Sleep Talk all the time. So you can thank Qwilfish for doing all the dirty work. I once lost a game in a stall game against another player that never played GSC before, and Shellnuts was nice enough to analyze this match with me, and he pointed out that all of the spikes in this stall game of 300 turns managed to deal something like 300%, maybe more. That's enough to kill 3 mons with spikes damage, passive damage alone. Now, I'm not going to say that every single spikes damage is going to count, or that every single spikes damage or game is going to last 300 turns. Don't worry about that. In fact, spikes are what make games last very little, so be very short. Qwilfish is decently in a decent speed tier, being faster than Gyarados, which is nice. And it's faster than Nidoqueen, and it's faster than Granbull. I mean, it's faster than a lot of ground types, if not all of them. And it can use Hydro Pump to deal a nifty amount of damage. It also has just enough bulk to escape a 2-hit KO from Nidoqueen while offering a 2-hit KO in return, so not phased at all by the Queen's charms. Qwilfish can use Sludge Bomb as well, which in conjunction with Hydro Pump is pretty good. That means it has a pretty accurate move that has a 30% chance of inflicting poison status to Mons. And if that Mon is soon forced out, then the next time it comes back in, it'll be taking 12.5%. So Qwilfish is absolutely perfect in terms of dealing passive damage. But as if that weren't enough, Qwilfish is also able to use Haze, allowing it to stop mainly Scyther in its tracks as it attempts to sweep or pass a stat to something else. You do still have to watch out, though, because many Scyther will just use that stat boost to hit the Qwilfish and weaken it to a point where it cannot haze, and cancel all of that stat boost stuff. So you gotta watch out for that. In any case, Qwilfish has cemented itself as one of the most popular picks in many tournaments. And it's sometimes in contention for top in terms of usage. So it's actually threatening the very grounds of the S-tier status for the top 3 Mons in recent history. So that's something to look out for. Then there are the other checks that make this tier. Oh no. My computer is lagging. The other threats that make this tier... I can't click on my mouse. Okay. So, other threats that make this tier are, well, a variety of different things. So if you go to special attackers, you have Ampharos, Arcanine, Blossom, Blastoise, Electabuzz, I suppose you could include Gyarados, Haunter, Lantern, Magneton, Omastar, Pikachu, Politoed, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So the special attackers very much benefit from Qwilfish's spikes. But I think before I get to them, I would like to mention the very checks to Granbull and how they affect the metagame as well. As if it weren't for them, this tier would be pretty much Granbull does things tier. Normal typing is good for the reasons I already explained earlier. I'm just going to make sure that the music is playing again. Yeah, I suppose we could go with that. So, the normal resists. I'll just touch on each of them briefly. So, Haunter is the normal resisting Mon that is the most frail, but is also the fastest, and perhaps the most unpredictable. Kind of like Gengar in OU. It has access to a myriad of different moves, making it pretty unpredictable, but its bread and butter are probably going to be Psychic and Thunder. Much in the same veins as Mr. Mime, with the difference being that it's not a Psychic resist, but it's weak to Psychic, and it instead can switch in on mono-attacking Granbull, or even normal HP Bug, Scyther, or Pinsir. So, or Wigglytuff, I guess? I don't know, just, yeah. The meta's changing. But Psychic and Thunder means that there isn't really much that can switch in on it. In fact, I would go so far as to saying that the only thing that isn't afraid of Haunter, because Haunter can achieve some things that Mime can't do with Psychic and Thunder, is Magneton. Magneton doesn't give an absolute fuck about Haunter. So, yeah. That's literally the one counter. Because Haunter's best bet at that point would be booming or, I don't know, praying for luck. But, anyways, why is it so good? It's fast. It outspeeds lots of special attackers. It outspeeds Nidoqueen and can 2-hit KO it, I think? It would be a good idea to calc that, actually. Damage calc. With spikes, it should. Yeah, with spikes, it 2-hit KOs. So, oh. Never mind. It says guaranteed, but that's not true. It's not a guaranteed. It's 49. With the spikes, it's no. You're right. It doesn't 2-hit KO it. Wow. Okay. So you gotta watch out for that. But it's if you play your cards right, Haunter can definitely give Nidoqueen a run for its money. And it can pretty much explode on a lot of the things that wall it. So it's not only really, really threatening against the things that it already threatens, but the things that are otherwise able to check it have to watch out for Explosion. Because Explosion is absolutely busted in Gen 2, as it has the defensive Mons. So even the bulky Mons are going to have a hard time. And that's when you open up the road for a faster Mon than whatever your opponent is using. So, in that regard, Haunter is just absolutely wonderful. You're going to use Explosion oftentimes. You can boom on things, especially Grand Bull. Or you can use Destiny Bond and scout for Grand Bull attacks or other special attackers that are slower. You can use Haze, but I mean, I don't really see that happen. Hypnosis is very common. And there's also Thief. There's occasionally Thief Haunter. Some people like to use Explosion and Destiny Bond. Catches a lot of people off guard. So, yeah. Then there's Magneton. So let's do Mag. Mag is perhaps the least popular normal resist not named Kabutops. And it's the one that has the best matchups against psychic types, though. So that's pretty much its main selling point. It's pretty good with Hidden Power Ice and 120 base special. Its special attack, it's really threatening to the likes of Lovely Kiss Nidoqueen. It can OHKO with Thunder Scyther. It can 2-hit KO Grand Bull. It can 3-hit KO Hypno. So Hypno can't take Magneton out very reliably, and it's slower. And in turn, Magneton, who resists Hypno's attacks, can threaten it back. So yeah, with the fact that it has hidden power too, it's never really 100% safe for an electric type to switch into Magneton. Sorry, an electric resist. So that's something that you should keep in mind. It also has access to T-Wave and other shit like that. Then there's Omastar. Omastar is the bulkiest Grand Bull check. Has access to Surf. Has a whopping 100 special and 115 special attack and 125 defense. So even an EQ from Piloswine won't be able to OHKO it. So it'll often run this set. So it's also a Sleep Talker. Therefore not as afraid of Lovely Kiss Grand Bull. and can use Ice Beam or Surf. And Ice Beam will hit a lot of things very well, and it's really good for fishing for freezes because Omastar is pretty good at living a long time. Occasionally you might also opt for Hidden Power Electric, but this will lower the bulk of Omastar, and it also means you get walled by certain mons like Blossom. Then there's Kabutops. Kabutops is not so much a normal resist, more than something that you can use for momentum while switching into Frustration from Granbull. That's because it's a Swords Dance sweeper. It doesn't have room for using Sleep Talk. It'll have Hidden Power Ground, usually. Ancient Power, yes, Ancient Power, and Hydro Pump. So, with Hydro Pump, you turn Kabutops from being a pretty straightforward physical attacker to a pretty deadly mixed attacker that even outspeeds Nidoqueen and Qwilfish. So, no, not Qwilfish. I lied. Shut up. But, yeah. So, Rock and Ground is already really good, but Ancient Power isn't really strong, base 60 power. The whole reason why you use it is because after a Swords Dance, it's already fairly decent, and then you can fish for a boost. And if you get one boost, then this Kabutops is already very threatening to a lot of mons that would otherwise outspeed it. So it's something to keep in mind. With the Hydro Pump, you're always going to have a reliable way to hurt Granbull. So that's also pretty good. And yeah, so the special attackers, we mentioned them. I don't really feel like going over them that much. I'm just gonna say Ampharos is the closest thing to a special wall that isn't Hypno or Blossom. Arcanine is a mixed bag. I don't really think it's great. It's fast and can hurt Scyther. Do not use Extreme Speed. Don't bother. Blossom is good because it can spread status with Stun Spore or Sleep Powder. It can learn Leech Seed. It can learn Razor Leaf to crit things with. Has a lot of PP. It can use Giga Drain, but I don't really see that. It can even learn Growth, I think. And Moonlight. So Moonlight, no, never mind, I lied. It can't learn Growth. Shut the fuck up. But it can learn Moonlight, so it has access to an immediate recovery move. It has access to Reflect, so it offers support as well, not just with by forcing switches using Leech Seed. And it even learns Swords Dance. And you'd be surprised to see that there are times where this sweeps with Return and Swords Dance. Blastoise is extremely valuable because it's faster than Nidoqueen, just faster. You can hit it really powerfully. It's pretty bulky, dummy thick, and can use Rapid Spin. So yeah, really good mon. Not to be underestimated at all. Chansey is a special wall, but it's very predictable. The saving grace for Chansey is probably its access to Heal Bell, and just the fact that it can sit on Psychic types. But besides that, it doesn't have too many advantages. Crobat, I already said what it does. It checks Scyther. It can use Thief and steal leftovers. It can use Haze. And for the rest, it's pretty mediocre. Dodrio is a fast but frail Granbull. But I guess that's not a special attacker. Dummy. I guess I'm just talking about all of the mons at this point. So Dodrio, because I mentioned Chansey, but whatever, and Crobat. Dodrio has normal and flying moves. So with Drill Peck, it can 2-hit KO Haunter. So that's nice. And with Double Edge, it can hit a lot of things, including Granbull, for a lot of damage. and with those spikes. Yeah, it's a great revenge killer. So imagine having something almost as strong as Granbull, but that can revenge kill with that stab normal move. Really good. Also, spikes immune, dodges or EQs. That's always something good to have. Electabuzz is another special attacker, but I can say that you could call it a mixed attacker the one time it chooses to have Cross Chop. Cross Chop is not compatible with Pursuit, so always watch out for that. If you see a Pursuit Electabuzz, then it doesn't have Cross Chop, so you can switch your Chansey in on it or something like that. Electrode uses screens, is not outsped by anything in this tier, sets up those screens, booms. That's all it does. Yeah. Gligar is a check to Fire Blast Nidoqueen, a check to Pinsir, somewhat of a check to Gligar, but, Scyther, but Scyther can always just baton pass to like a Gyarados and then you're fucked. So that's why I don't like Gligar. Jumpluff is actually super slept on. Really fast, switches in on literally anything and uses Encore and you're fucked. It's one of the few things that outspeeds Scyther and can actually lock it into a move, giving it little room to do anything and giving all the momentum to the Jumpluff user. So, props to you, Jumpluff. You're actually useful. Lantern. Lantern is wonderful. Lantern has risen in popularity recently thanks to Holly. You already know. I've used it in recent ladder sessions and in some friendlies with Holly. I've used her team, as a matter of fact. Lantern has access to two of the best special attacking types in water and electric. So with that, it can use Stab Surf, Stab Thunder, and deal a fuck ton of damage. It's hard to switch into it because you're not always going to have Blossom on your team. You're not always going to have a grass type so you're not always going to have something that resists these moves. And with a strong move in Thunder and that mediocre special attack stat, it actually compensates a lot. And the paralysis really helps too, as do the spikes. It's also really bulky on the special side, so watch out for that. Pikachu is... How do I describe Pikachu? Pikachu is fucking garbage, except for that one time where you get screwed over by it because it's fast and you want to switch into something, but it has Light Ball and Hidden Power Ice and Thunder, which is like the strongest in the game, I think, even stronger than Zapdos's or something. I can't remember. No, weaker than Zapdos's, but it's the third strongest Thunder in the game. And then there's Surf. Like, what the hell? How do you even? I don't remember its moves though, because I don't like it. With Light Ball, it doesn't have any recovery whatsoever, so it just takes 2 hits and dies, and that's it. So that's why I say it's bad. Piloswine. Woo! Piloswine. Piloswine. What else do I have to say? Do I have to say anything? Piloswine, guys. EQ. 100 base attack. Ice Beam Stab. What do you want? It's a good rest and sleep talker. Has 100 HP. Base HP. You roll Ice Beam, you hit something. You roll with your Sleep Talk, you roll EQ, you hit something. It's just so fucking good. It's also used... I've also used Roar, which is nice, but yeah, Sleep Talk is the way to go. There's no way around it. It's just amazing. try passing a Swords Dance to it. You'll have a lot of fun. Pincer. Pincer is what Scyther would be if Scyther didn't have Baton Pass, and yeah, and we're slower, so a lot less viable. That's Pincer. Pincer resists ground. Scyther doesn't resist ground, it's just straight up immune. But that said, it's stronger than Scyther, and it has access to submission, I guess, which is nice. It's still really good. I like it. You can use Body Slam. That's also something you can do, so you can Sword Stance up and then cripple something with Body Slam. But it suffers from the problem of being a lot more predictable, as it really needs that Hidden Power bug. Using Hidden Power bug means that you can even switch in Haunter safely. That said, we're recently talking about its ability to use Hidden Power ground, as it's not completely out there. But here's what you would normally see. And then maybe, like, I don't know, submission. Yeah. So that's the typical Pincer set. Oh shit, did I forget about I forgot about Gyarados. How did I skip Gyarados? That's like one of the most viable mons in the tier. Gyarados has just as much attack as Pincer does. And better coverage. It's also flying type and outspeeds the Queen and is a very hard counter to Piloswine. So this is usually what you will be seeing. Hydro Pump, HP Flying to 2-hit KO Scyther, Thunder, and Roar. Roar you can use to phase Scyther, or anything. Even Quagsire, I guess. Thunder hits water types which would otherwise switch in on it a lot. So I also like to use the all-out attacking Gyarados by giving it Double Edge. And with Double Edge and spikes on the ground, it's so easy to hit things for neutral damage off of such a high attack and a really strong Hydro Pump to boot. So, really threatening mon. Also, I don't know if this is the case in all gens, but in Gen 2, Hydro Pump is 120 base power, so I'm pretty sure in some tier they nerfed it. Politoed and Quagsire use Belly Drum. Politoed can also use Growth, can also use Surf viably, has 90 base special, so it's a little bit more unpredictable. Sandslash is a Sword Stance sweeper in the same way that Kabutops is, but it does it right in that it has actually good coverage and stab. It has Earthquake and Rock Slide. So you're just going to use EQ, Rock Slide, Swords Dance, and Substitute. And you use it in conjunction with the Paralysis team to sweep. Then there's Victory Bell and Vileplume. Victory Bell is a better physical attacker than Vileplume. Vileplume is more thick, and Victory Bell's fast. You can use Sleep Powder, Swords Dance, Sludge Bomb, and Hidden Power Ground. So it's another kind of atypical sweeper, but yeah, it works. So yeah, and that's about it. So I hope that you guys enjoy the tier. At least I'll say that this might be the first part as far as this is concerned.